As how many fewer
Peter,
cars.
can you hear us? I just unmuted us.
Hi there. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew you were on mute, but you're all good now.
We were waiting for Jen, but I mean, we can start if the group wants to. I don't know. Do you want to give it a few minutes?
Who's next in charge here?
You chaired one time, didn't you?
Yes, but that does not mean Craig is also.
I know, it's also, yes.
Oh,
So I took backup.
You rock, paper, scissors. You're welcome to sit at the table if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I don't like sitting at the head of the table. I'll make a quick exit.
Oh, yeah. There she is.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hang on, you want to sit in the middle there?
Claire was pitching and had a little firing and I had to see if I
Oh, yeah, that's
was.
where you're gonna go to.
Yeah.
So good. I thought she struck somebody out.
Oh, that's nice.
Ooh.
Charles still practice on.
Oh, darn.
It's hard. It hurts me watching them twist their arms and throw it.
You're not here from the federal government, are you?
No.
Okay. But you have a table.
5, 6.
And I saw that Peter said he was
Oh, Peter's online.
online. right?
Yep, he is. He said yes.
Great. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Okay. All right, sorry for the delay, everybody. Let's call this meeting to order. This is the May meeting of the Scarborough Transportation Committee. And I'll start by taking attendance. Roger,
Yeah.
Portia,
Here.
nice to see you. Craig,
Here.
Chuck,
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Fine,
Great time.
Donna, right on. Thank you. And John
Here.
and Jen, both all here. Great. The next item is approval of the April meeting minutes.
That was not included in your packet, so I'm gonna have to delay that.
Okay. Do that.
I was wondering if I had just erased them or done something.
See if you guys were paying attention.
Okay. So we'll see those next time. The third item is the Jones Creek potential pilot project. And Angela, if you want to.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
run down.
actually gonna start with this one. Peter, can you see my screen with green and red boxes?
Should we close those points?
I can, yes. And
Okay.
unlike other green and red boxes, I can actually tell the difference between these. So these are good.
Oh, you can see, I didn't even think of
He's
that. I
colorblind,
apologize.
It's okay.
Um, so starting with, is that better? Okay. Starting with this, if you guys have not done the same point, there's a lot of construction going on. We have Maine Water has been replacing their water mains in the areas of Jones Creek and some of these avenues, Tasker, Avenue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a lot of the road is ripped up. The main does run along the side of the road. Essentially where the on-street parking is currently Jones Creek. They have just wrapped up, or wrapping up for the summer season. And if you recall, that we knew that last fall, Public Works had allocated funds to repave the streets. in Pine Point area. We delayed that a year, knowing that main water was gonna come in and rip up the roads. So the plan was to shift that back a year, which means we would wait till after the summer season, so with less disruption, and do the paving in the fall, which would also line up with, where they'd have their work done, then we'd end up with their smooth black surface, and kind of have a complete project. What that means, there is this temporary situation for this summer that has provided an opportunity if we cared to do it. It has been brought up by the residents, a few concerns down there about the parking on Jones Creek. There's a lot of sight distance issues coming out of driveways. I mean, you guys, similar, we heard from East Grand Ave. I think there's been probably more complaints on Jones Creek, because there are parking stalls in areas that are very tight to some intersections and some driveways, so we haven't addressed that yet. So it gives us an opportunity to look at this summer, there's gonna be a temporary condition. And so looking at it, what we're seeing here is the total spaces, I believe there are 36 spaces currently. If we go back to the policy, which we talked about at East Grand Ave, and we have told the residents that we would look to do here to restripe. The state and federal standards say 20 feet from an intersection. But our local policy we talked about is 5 feet from a driveway. So that's where the red dots come up.
What percentage are permanent residents versus summer?
For Pine
short-term?
Point?
Well,
I'm not
I'm just
sure.
talking about Jones Creek.
Oh, I am not sure.
Okay.
I don't know if we have that information.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know that. But looking at restriping to meet our kind of setbacks and sight distance, it essentially is like cutting the parking stalls in half. That's where you'd end up with just the green left. So with the residents have also come to the town staff and asked about looking at potential improvements, or even just a paved shoulder for bike and ped facilities in the area, because I think a lot of people doing the loop. So it came as an opportunity perhaps this summer to look at, do we just stripe it, say, with the chevron areas in that, to see and get people as a pilot to say, is this something you'd want to keep, or do we really need the parking spaces? And I think town staff is really doesn't have an opinion one way or the other. I think we're hearing from multiple people. I included in your packet a letter from a resident and a business owner down in the area talking about the importance of parking in the area. I think we've heard that also in the East Grand Ave project similarly. So I think we're looking for a little bit of feedback. I will say it also went out to the Pine Point Association, this idea or thought. And again, it would be just for the summer, and then when we repave in the fall, it would be a public discussion on, okay, what are we putting back? Are we putting back the parking? Are we putting back a bike and ped kind of striped facility like as we're seeing here? The other thing that the reason why this kind of came up is not only people requesting an area to walk and bike or have used strollers and things like that, is it comes around and it does connect if you get to the end. Fifth Avenue 5 actually has along it a reclaim, so it's sort of a not necessarily a smooth paved surface, but there is a shoulder there that then connects to the crosswalk, which then connects to Herd Park. So there is like a connection. It doesn't just dead end somewhere. So it seemed like that was a good opportunity. Again, it's kind of weighing parking versus bike and ped and how this area wants to look and feel and function.
When you say that residents have reached out on this, like how many and?
So we, have met, with Pine Point Association folks, but then I think there's a lot of split, I assume you maybe I should ask, maybe to speak, do you mind?
No, I
Speaking
don't
up, 'cause I know you
mind.
have, there's a bunch of subcommittees, so
Sure.
I feel like we
Right.
meet individually with subcommittees, I don't wanna misspeak on
Right.
who we've spoken to with that.
So, my name is Pat Degon, and so we live at 7th Avenue 2 and own the house around the corner on 41 Jones Creek Drive. And I'm here to speak with you from two hats. I'm on the board for the Pine Point Association, but I also want to not overstep their intentions and speak to you personally as well. What I can tell you is long before the association was established, there have been lots and lots of concerns shared with Tom Hall and with the town about leaving any of the side streets and trying to get out onto Jones Creek in either direction, but in particular, if you're leaving a side street and trying to head down towards East Grand, because the parking spots are on that side of the street, you just can't see. You literally, and we've shared lots of pictures. You are out into way beyond the middle of the lane traveling. I guess that would be, I don't know which way towards the pier. So that's been an issue. I'm thrilled that the town has changed the ordinance for this year in terms of the length and the size of the vehicles that can park on Jones Creek. Because that will be helpful. We've had these big, huge campers take up 2 and 3 spots. And you just can't see. So that becomes a problem. From the association's perspective, through multiple meetings, we've had either in our monthly meeting agenda, comments from members, or at our community-wide meetings down at the fire station. Routinely, it's brought up and repeatedly it's brought up that the residents are very concerned about the safety aspect. There's no parking on King Street. There's no parking on Driftwood. There's no parking on Pillsbury Drive. There's only parking on Jones Creek. So if you are out exercising, if you're out walking, if you've got a baby carriage, picture on Jones Creek. So with all those spots, red and green, you are literally walking a few steps, going out into the travel lane, coming back in, out into the travel lane. If you're pushing a carriage, if you're walking, if you're biking, if you're just trying to
Who's
exercise.
parking? Are these residents who are parking, or they are people who are?
Well,
It's public parking. So anybody
it's
can-
public parking, so they're marked parked spots. Mostly in the summer, there are people who go to the beach. And for our house in particular on Avenue 2, if you see that one red spot that's blocked out along Jones Creek to the left of exiting Avenue 2, those 2 green spots right there, that's our house in behind one of those green spots, and it looks kind of grayed out because we actually have stoned the whole front yard so that we can get people off the street. But we have cars parking in those green spots and even non-marked spots behind them, and so our family can't get out either. It's a real challenge, and if you look further down Jones Creek, between Avenue 1 and Tasker, where there are the cabins that sit down. Yeah, right there. Good, Angela.
There is a loop, yeah.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation with the police department,
Those
Parking
people
spaces.
cannot see
Yeah.
to get out. And so from the association's perspective, because we've heard it repeatedly, because there were concerns about driveway exiting, the side street exiting, and the safety for pedestrians. We have made a couple of appearances at the town council to suggest this would be a great year to pilot no on-street parking for Jones Creek. We're very happy that the town has heard that and is considering it. The circumstance is not just pervasive during the summer months when the restaurants are open. It's all year long for us. And
Yeah,
so
who's parking there in the winter?
people coming down to go to the beach,
Okay.
you know, we'll have surfers as late as November coming down and, you know. park.
Is there an hour limit for a parking space?
No, it's the night, overnight, you can't park there, you know, during the
You can
overnight.
park there all day.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so now I can speak personally. There have almost been fisticuffs out there sometimes. It becomes really uncomfortable because if you've got people trying to leave a parking spot we've created and there's a car behind them, we had to call the police last year. We have a boat down at the marina, we were pulling it, we have a place to pull the trailer in. And there was a car from Canada parked right there, not a marked spot, not a legal spot, just parked there, and the police couldn't tow it. The best they could do was ticket the guy. It makes a lot of anxiety for everybody involved. And even today, so Gorham Sand and Gravel has been terrific
That's
this
good to
summer
hear.
through this whole project. And right now they're trying to groom and get everything ready, so the temporary paving is nicely done. You know, they cut in a nice berm, and now they're coming to try to backfill with the loam and then seed. And they've done out by the marina and the end of King Street. Well, now they're doing Jones Creek. There are cars parked on Jones Creek during the day today. There are no marked spots. There are cars parked down there. There was a car parked where at the end of Avenue 2, right between that red spot and that green spot, those are 3 spots technically. They were just parked there. Gorham Sand and Gravel came down, dumped loom in front of the car, and then went further down the road because the car was parked there. And we happened to be out walking and said to the guy, "Are you guys coming back?" He said, "We'll be back, you know, we gotta wait." So then,
That's been marked as no parking.
well, there's no marks right now.
No signs. Yeah.
There's no signs, there's nothing. So they did come back and put some cones out, which will help them. But I mean, it's repeated repetition and returning to do the work that they're trying to
So it
do.
raises the cost of the project.
Well, I don't know if it does or not, but
But for somebody.
they've been wonderful. I can't express how open they've been, easy access between main water and Gorham Sand and Gravel. They've been really good. And I know, I have no doubt that they're gonna come back, but they shouldn't have to come back, you know?
Exactly.
So we just, I feel, I don't wanna speak for the association, but I feel this is the perfect time to try this pilot. It's going to get worse, I think, if the town moves to put metered parking in down at the parking lot, and then these spots are free. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare, I think, on Jones Creek. And like I said, it's the only place where there's parking on the peninsula. And honestly, it's on the wrong side of the street with the side streets trying
That
to.
was another
Exit.
suggestion we got from the neighborhood, is looking at switching the parking to the other side of the street, and it actually, I think they ended up with 5 spaces if we do that, because there's so many
Right.
more cuts or driveways and having enough room in
Right.
between.
And I think, I mean, Angela, when we've met with you, you have
Yes.
been very open and transparent with us what the options are. And that's why we felt and now's the time to try no parking. But we have more than 120 members in the association. We've put together a survey that's just gone live to try to get some real feedback that we're happy to share with the town. And I know the town will be looking for feedback at the end of this, so it just seems like it's the time to do
I
it.
was curious who, percentage wise, just a gut feel, who's for it and who's against it, and those who are against it, is there a particular reason why they're against, other than the business? I understand that, but,
I'd hate to
okay.
try to
okay,
give that statistic because we just don't know yet.
Okay, that's fair.
We have seen that there are some people who live on Jones Creek who will go out and take those spots early in the morning, even though they have driveways, but the claim is that they've got guests coming. I don't know. That's why we, in our meetings, in our deliberation said, let's get concrete data, so let's do a survey. So I would not feel comfortable
Yeah.
trying to guess what the amount was.
I question, I know the letter writer that we received, she's a prominent business person down there. Could it be that some of her employees use that parking right there on street parking? Because they don't have any other place to park
No, they have parking behind,
behind their business?
yeah.
Okay,
And I would say, the letter received, I mean, it's similar comments, East Grand Ave. I mean, any parking, even when we were losing one parking space is important. With East Grand Ave, we had that conversation, and I think not only from that one resident, other residents voiced the
Yeah.
same thing. So I think there's definitely this balance. And so the question is, yeah, which is the way to go, and maybe the pilot is a temporary situation. I will say to the other side of that, some of the things you brought up was, we have tried to address. So like you said, we did just, recently update the ordinance, so you can't park larger vehicles in a residential zone on street parking. So that kind of eliminates those larger, like fifth wheels and campers or RVs can't park there, or even a trailer with a boat or something. Those larger vehicles are not allowed. We also were talking, that's where these get eliminated from a total of 35. Even if we strike this and we didn't do, say, the bike ped, like widened shoulder there, it would be, there's a total of 35, and 19 would remain just by going through our current ordinances or our policy, right? So no matter what we do, we are gonna eliminate 16 spaces along this stretch. So there will be some improvements, even if we don't do, say, the bike ped striping. So just wanted to point that out. And then also to the other side, the other comments we got, we will be losing parking regardless, just because of kind of how we've gone through the public process and kind of came up with that 5-foot policy from driveways.
But
And
we've also
Peter's-
said this, yeah, safety is huge.
Right.
Yeah, a question I have, I know, Main Water and the sand and gravel folks have been using that auxiliary lot on the north side of King Street. Will that be back open and available for parking, during the pilot period?
My understanding is they just seeded it, so I'm not sure how long it will take to be viable to drive on.
Gotcha.
It's not a given.
Because I guess my only concern, I love the idea, frankly. I think the pilot is a great idea, but it feels like we may have already sucked a bunch of auxiliary spaces from that secondary lot, and that might be a lot of volume strain on the availability during this summer. So, but I like the idea of using this as a pilot.
The only concern with this use of the secondary lot is that's only open on, it's not
it's an overflow.
it's not an always open access lot. And it's only open on those days where the main lot is completely full and you have to pay to park in there.
that is paid parking. And I think community services done a thing, they talked about like maybe there's like 5 weekends or something where they actually utilize it.
I think it's 12 days out of the summer or something.
That makes sense.
That was gonna be my question, so if we pilot this, can we open that auxiliary lot to allow for 15 free spaces? Just to say, part of the pilot, knowing that we're trying it here, we may want to try and allow for some free parking in those spaces, because for me, we get a lot of emails from residents concerned about the cost of parking. And removing these spaces does create an access issue for folks, and so if we're gonna pilot it, a good way to kind of address that might be to say, can we do something in the auxiliary lot, have 15 spaces open there, or whatever, that are free, first come, first served still, if people park there, they can stay there and not pay. I feel like that might help bring along some other people and maybe address some of the concerns down there. I'm interested in your perspective on that.
My suspicion is you're gonna have people coming down from Bailey's who were unable to get non-resident passes. They're gonna take up those 15 spots in no time. And it's really not gonna help the
But,
residents.
but that would be the same situation as an on-street parking space, right? Are those people doing that now with the on-street
Sometimes,
spaces?
and we see them come down with their go-karts and pick up who's ever parked a car.
I guess I'm also wondering if, and I don't know maybe how it functions, but, that you do pay to go into Herd Park, and if that's always open as free,
Right,
that would fill up that first.
Right.
So people are like, oh, I could pay, or I
Right.
go across the street. Which they might not go all the way down from like Avenue 1
right.
over to Herd Park, but they would probably across King Street, right?
Yeah.
Are these spots turning over during the day, or is it just people get there first thing in the morning and then just like the cars just stay there?
It's like
Well,
Grand
it's
East
not-
Grand Ave.
Summer, they just stay there.
There's
Yeah.
not like, there's like turnover, new people coming if you don't get there first thing in the morning.
Yeah, 4 o'clock, the people will start to leave and
So is this basically coming down to retaining parking spaces versus bike ped availability?
And safety turning out.
I would say safety is huge. Safety is
Well, it
huge.
pertains to both,
I know,
bike ped and.
Because even the
and
parking will be
parking.
addressing some of the safety.
yeah. We have
Even-
safe turning.
Do you have any data around safety? Are there a high number of crashes?
No, this is not a high crash location to report or,
It's just whether people feel safe enough to
yeah.
go out into the street.
Or like I said, it is very blind coming out
Yeah.
of the driveways, and so I think even having, as we said, even restriping as we are, where we are eliminating 16 spaces will improve that safety of kind of the sight distance safety piece.
But we've
And the
seen-
intersections are 20 feet, so that's a big jump. So those things, that's where that comes in.
even the people who are coming and parking in a space on Jones Creek and planning to go to the beach for the day, they're taking out their wagons and all
Yeah.
their beach chairs and their beach buggies, and they're walking in the street. It's a big safety issue as far as just personally I'm concerned, and I think the topography of the side streets is peculiar because all of these streets, they sink down. And so when you come out, even if you lose 1 or 2 spots on either side, and you've got a big truck there, you still can't see. You still, I really encourage you to come down and try to see how obstructed the view is, which is why we thought piloting it with no parking and, that this is the opportune time to do
Yeah,
it
so
this
why
year.
wouldn't we do a pilot? I don't ask that question.
I guess just with the feedback that we've received about the premium parking, you know what I mean, to actually not lose any
That's why
spaces, we can.
Their survey would be important.
Yeah.
I think the other piece that's valid from the business perspective and from your perspective is we anticipate that if those spots are gone, we're going to see the increase again down at the co-op of people parking their cars down there and walking to the beach. And from the business owner who owns Stearns, and pays for park spots down there that are not,
And people ignore signs.
guarantees, like, right, so it's a challenge, it's, you know.
I do think the survey will be helpful.
Right.
But I view these spaces not as Pine Point spaces, I view them as the 20,000 residents in Scarborough have access to these, and so. That's my concern, I'm just thinking of. What we were gonna do on Route 1 for the pilot project in the summertime. People were worried about it, and I just feel like losing the spaces, I think is. Gonna be very unpopular with many residents in town. But I
It's
agree
going
with you.
down to 16 and it's our
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
It-
It is
and-
your neighborhood, but it is the town's
Right.
parking spots. And
When-
it is, everybody has a right to have access to the beach. And not everybody can afford to pay to park, and I know it sounds like there are people who are. Taking advantage of living there and using those spaces and blocking them, but. You know. Not everybody can
Interesting if you
afford.
put time limit, 2 hours, I mean, enforcement, if you're gonna allow parking, enforcement becomes critical.
Yeah.
Whether it is timing or whether it is size or location, because people have already proved that they'll park anywhere if they
Yeah.
can't find a.
I do
And it
agree
doesn't-
that safety is paramount, and that should be one of the driving factors. I guess the question is, for me, is how long is the pilot? Like, what dates are we considering? Is it all summer, or is it maybe after the 4th of July through?
It would be
Labor Day?
repaved, so basically, the opportunity is that whenever we put down for paint, we're gonna end up putting a black surface over everything. And we'll be able to, at that point, either put parking back or put this back. So that would happen after Labor Day, because we want it to be outside of really the height of the summer season, when it'll be the most disruptive. Cause we're gonna pave the entire road and shoulder is all gonna be surface paved, so it'll be disruptive to the neighborhood. Cause we're doing all the streets. So it's really trying to get out of the summer season, but still be hot enough to put surface pavement down. So I could see that being, say, the end of September, beginning of October.
But when would
even
it
if
start?
stretched to. Excuse
When
me.
would it start? As far
I
as
guess
the
that would
the
be
pilot,
it. Well, as she had mentioned, they're wrapping up and
Okay.
doing, I mean, it can start whenever we kind of
so it
talk
could be
about it or
July.
get information about it.
Yeah.
The only thing I just wanted to clarify too is, I know in the letter came from a business owner, but I do wanna keep pointing out that when we heard from other folks at East Grand Ave. Still residents that we heard from that even live further up Pine Point Road that we're talking about using the on-street parking on East Grand Ave or Jones Creek. To John's point, it's not just about business, so I just wanted to. Put that out there too.
Just to get some background, what's the reasoning for the auxiliary lot only being open at certain times? Why do we limit it?
It's, so Hurt Park is paid parking, it's really about controlling, the flow of kind of, there's attendants there, the beach attendants that take, I don't even know if they take money anymore, that just passes and kind of patrol that and kind of keep that. And when you open the next lot, it just means they need more staff and then you gotta open, you know what I mean? Cause it has to be controlled. In order to do the.
To John's point, why don't
Yeah.
we just have free parking?
Yeah.
Available at that auxiliary lot? To
Then it would become probably something that would be used heavily if it's free, so then you'd have to pave it, and that's a whole nother animal, is that
People
what
would
you
go
mean?
into Red Park.
Cause then it would be highly used, right now, it's so infrequent that it can stay a grassed area, which I've also heard from the residents that they enjoy the fact that that's a grassed area and not like a gravelled paved parking area. So if you start using it in that way, it would become a parking lot rather than something like a temporary seasonal, which we actually do in our ordinance now, have a seasonal temporary parking standards, so that it doesn't get compacted and it doesn't become an impervious surface, cause then we're getting.
So
that
maybe-
state.
Could there be an option though, similar to what John said, if we're taking 36 spots from Jones Creek Drive, could we put in up to the 36 free spots in that lot without impacting.
How many
the
does it
whole lot.
hold? Do you know how many people they can put in there in
How
general?
many can we put in there? I'm not sure, I could find out from community services.
Because I agree that it would be difficult to manage if it was a 40 space lot or a 50 space lot and 15 of them were gonna be free and the others were gonna be paid, or 30 would be free and the others be paid. I think it's probably either should go on to continue to be a paid overflow lot or a free lot that is not attended. And if people, if that fills up, if people park there first and that fills up, and that's how people are choosing to access the beach as opposed to parking in spaces along Jones Creek Drive or elsewhere where there
It is what it
where there's
is.
a pattern of blocking other people's driveways or safety concerns, great. We have that as an option, that's great. There are a lot of other places in town, I think East Grand Ave would be one of them, where there really isn't another, you can't relocate those parking spaces elsewhere and say like, we're taking these away because this is a safety concern, but this is an option for you over here. So I really like that idea.
How would that impact, like, how we would deem a success of the pilot if
Yeah.
eventually you're gonna be removing spots anyway?
Yeah, I think,
If it's
I
not gonna
think,
be a long-term
I think
fix,
the
then-
metrics in general around it are like, how do we know if this pilot works?
I assume it would be
Complaint
feedback.
driven? Are we
I don't
counting,
know if you'll have, that. I think you're gonna get.
are we counting bikes and pets? Like, that would be a great
Well, the other thing is if you, well,
option.
But
if you open the auxiliary lot and it's free, the same people who come at 6 in.the morning and park their cars are gonna fill that lot up. I mean,
I guess I also go back to caution, like, we cannot make that a permanent parking lot, cause I think we're gonna have challenges permitting that with the state, it's an environmental permitting we're talking about. So if we're talking about the temporary, it's like, okay, it's temporary, it's for, this pilot is different than saying we're removing all the spaces and we're putting these as free parking, because I would have to go through permitting with that.
How about this compromise? I'm just trying to compromise.
Yeah.
So, when the overflow lot is used.
Yeah.
Even though it would be complicated probably to administer, could we say that 20 spaces are free, first come, first serve? And those people get to park there for free, because again, I think of it as, if those people were gonna park on the street that same day to park for free, then
Yeah.
we should have some free
Yeah.
parking, so it's not every day,
Gotcha.
just when the overflow lot is open, to account for the fact that we're taking away what is today 36, but gonna be 19, right? So just
Yeah.
trying to show people that like we still,
Yeah, I'd wanna get community services involved in that conversation and how they manage or function.
Yeah.
Like I said, I guess maybe that would also bring in revenue for the town, cause it forced those people maybe parking here to actually pay for her parking, cause there is, if there's room available, there is place, Jen's point, we're kind of actually fortunate, we have a large parking space, lot that they can park. It's paid parking, but
Is your car available for parking off season? It's not crazy.
Yeah.
they do plow it,
Yeah.
a portion of it anyway, so.
Yeah, there's-
Can I just throw something out? And if you don't like it, it's touch flow. Could you put the whole,
Yeah,
the whole area there?
the green, this one,
Yeah. I mean, when I look at that, what it seems to me. This is, Jones Creek is the only street in the whole area where you have on-street parking.
Right.
Okay? And that is a very relatively small loop right there. King Street and Jones Creek, with the, the different avenues all. I was wondering, why not utilize the same type of, arrangement you have on Easton Road with the striping?
Mhm.
Make Jones Creek one way, make King Street one way, and the avenue streets in between all both two ways. And that way you could take Jones Creek, I don't know how wide it is, but stripe it so you could have parking and bike ped. Right? And going one way, going into is where all the businesses are. And then looping around on Avenue 6 or 5 and come back, but any anybody, like if you live on Avenue 2 and you want to get back out, you just go down to King Street and swing out.
There has been
Yeah.
some conversation about one way in, one way out. The issue with maintaining the parking spots on Jones Creek, if you were in on King Street and out on Jones Creek, is that the spots would have to be on the other side of the road because you'd be parking on the wrong side of the road.
Well,
And we have had a lot of, so I've been with the town 11 years, and I will say for 11 years, it comes up periodically.
Yeah.
And every time we talk about kind of master planning around Pine Point, is the one-way streets come up, and it's always part of the conversation. I think it gets, it's also this balance of, well, I don't want more people going by my house than they are this house, and right now it's how the traffic patterns are. And I think it has not moved forward because it doesn't have full support of the residents that would be impacted in this loop. It doesn't mean that that has voices change. I mean, it could be something that we just revisit every few years, and I'm fine with that too, but I know it has not moved forward specifically in those conversations.
But I think one of the conversations that we learned from you, Angela, was that these streets are not as wide as East Grand. They're much narrower. And that they wouldn't conform with even a one-way because you'd have to have a two-car width. And then if you tried to put pedestrian and sidewalk, you just don't have enough room without going into established yards. Not that it's not town property, but
are
I
you familiar with Eastern Road going off of Black Point Road? The way that's.
That is
striped and everything?
two-way.
It
That's
is,
a two-way.
it is two-way.
I understand it's two-way, but,
Yeah.
I don't know how wide Jones Creek is, but
But you're thinking like similar to like, also Ocean, when you get down in Ocean Ave. It's
going down to Higgins.
Yeah, that's one way, but has set.
Yes,
striping
yeah, once you
for-
get by the end, yes.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, if you're walking, you just like to have 3 feet. You
right,
don't have to
right,
be greedy and want 5 feet.
right. Oh,
You know?
yeah.
So
No, I
if
know.
you-
We're happy to not go in the middle of the passing.
So if
Driveway.
you have just 3 feet and then some parking. So if this is approved, I want my name on that.
Roger Billy Loop, is that?
No, but I mean, unlike East Grand where there's really, you don't have any options. This is there's a loop there, you know? In fact, when I do go down there, quite often I will go one, you know.
Yeah.
Make the loop around.
Makes sense.
But I do think that's a bigger, process, discussion, planning effort. And as Autumn starts going through probably our town centers, that'll be when Pine Point comes up, I'm sure that will be part of that
But,
again.
I want it clear. If it is implemented and it fails, it's Huck's fault.
Oh, then it becomes, it's named after him.
I think Jen's question though is a good question of like, how are we measuring success to know whether it failed or not? Because
Yeah,
I get the sense that you and your neighbors will like it. I get the sense a lot of other people won't like it. So how do we decide whether this actually worked or not?
so I don't know, I think Tom was wondering if this would move forward, so we hadn't got there, but I had brought up, we met with, Richard Silkman was the last one we talked to about it, from Pine Point, talking about exactly that, and I had suggested similar to actually our advisory bike lanes down at, Eastern Road, what we did for that is we did put out a survey, that was able to gather information and, we can do that too. And we kind of did it in a lot of our CIPs too, we have a portal. And we can kind of drive everybody to it and kind of vote and do it that way, is one way we could do it. It also gives opportunities for comments. What people like or don't like kind of thing, but really looking at kind of thumbs up, thumbs down. That's where I kind of went back to opinion, I guess, but that's the only thing I could think of to try to capture that opinion.
I think that would be
And like I said,
good
town-wide
good information to
kind of
have.
opinion.
Yeah, I also think that, I know that you had shown sort of a schematic up here earlier of, kind of hatching in this area, which to me looks very much like this is sort of traditional markings that we put for no parking.
Mhm.
If this were to go down as a pilot project, I think we should really, it's important to convey that this would be a no parking area, but I think it's really important to also convey that this is a space for people to walk and bike in. Even though you can do that on, right on this, you know, the way that this is painted. But I think that for people unfamiliar with this area and the fact that it is a pilot project, and that is part of the point of demonstrating that, is like, hey, we could potentially use this space differently, better, and more safely. That it would be important to like put that, make sure that that is.
So you use,
I mean,
that would look.
Probably like, you know, there's a lot of, I don't know if it's a standard MUTCD marking or not, but there's a lot of shared use trail marking options that will show like a bike symbol.
Exactly,
and a-
exactly.
and a
make it
person
very
walking.
clear what it's for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think any paint company would have these kind of stencils, or you could work with them to see what they do have. I think it should be more than a sharrow, because that's sort of
Okay.
conveys something
Right,
different.
right, yeah.
Or not a sharrow.
Right.
That conveys something different. Potentially the bike lane symbol, but I think adding the symbol of a person walking too would just be like really clear.
Okay.
And enforcement.
And some enforcement to make sure that nobody's parking there. If it's like a temporary, you know, we've got them on Woodside Road, whatever that is, across from,
Oh, right.
Hill School on
Yeah.
Highland Ave,
Yeah.
because it was a
The
problem,
police
like
can do that. yeah.
parents
Yep.
parking, and it was unsafe to see. So now there's like campaign type signs that say no parking, Scarborough can be,
Yeah.
and you know what, nobody parks there. So something like that could be, you know, a temporary, you don't need a drive signpost, you don't need ordinance change and like, anything like that. And along with those, potentially you could use, I've done this in other projects where a QR code has been added, that could help connect people with the survey. So, like this pilot, don't like this pilot, here, tell us.
And that's what, we did that too on the Eastern
Yeah.
Road. We had signs like, here's how it functions,
Yeah.
because you have to kind of, in that one, we had to educate people
Yeah.
about going around.
Yeah.
So there was an educational sign that had a QR code that would get you back to some more information. So that is a good point, is to have that at least on either end, but maybe also one in the middle.
And you could potentially also use that QR code and other sort of communications to help, if this sort of accessory parking, I'll say, is a viable element to the pilot, you could help explain that to people. There. But I don't wanna take too much more time on this one, but I do think that I think this is the whole point of a pilot project, and I know I see it further down here on on the list. In full awareness of Route 1 pilot is very different from what we are talking about here, but it sort of gets at the heart of what the point of a pilot project is, which is
Test.
we all agree to try it for a short time, and unless, you know, barring some serious emergency, we stick to that and wait it out. And you have to do it when it's busy, and you have to do it in the summer to know if it's going to work or not. And you evaluate it when it's done and go from there. And definitely having some set metrics defined ahead of time can help that, so you don't get to the end of it and have an equal number of people that liked it and didn't like it, and then, well, now what do we do?
Then John decides.
Yeah,
We'll decide that.
so, you know.
Well, I think that's, to me too, I would wanna know. Cause it sounds like really our only option is a thumbs up, thumbs down. And so if we get significant thumbs down
Mhm.
quickly in the process. Do we end the pilot early? Is there a gauge to say? If we get significant pushback and feedback?
I think
Yeah,
it
right,
would
right.
be difficult to do something, then we'd be spending money
You have
to
to
do a
change
temporary.
the stripes.
We'd have to paint it all
No.
black and then paint something temporary to didn't do it again in the fall, so it'd be an additional expense, I
Just a
guess.
couple of months anyways,
I
right?
mean, it's gonna be the summer before
Right.
the full paving happens anyway, so.
Um. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. Then I guess maybe a poll from this group and what you would suggest.
Well, and then we go toward the metro project and saying, is there a way to run, parking here and run to the beach too? I mean, there are other options available in the community, longer term.
Yeah, you're talking long term.
Right,
Yeah.
but
50 years from now.
the same thing is, do you do timed parking so that people can't park there all day long? I mean, I think that's really the major issue is people come and grab a spot and park, camp out there.
That's still long term though, because we would need additional staff for parking enforcement that we don't have.
We were just.
So even that's a long term.
So the pilot project. What is that again? Remind me, what's the pilot project? You go with the green and red dots,
No,
To go with
or
the
just
yellow.
pave over
No.
everything?
Yes, no
No
on street,
parking at
no
all,
on
right?
parking for the
No
summer.
parking.
no
at all.
parking
All right,
It's
so
the
for
pilot.
like 2 or 3 months.
for the summer, yes.
Okay.
And so it would be end of September, let's say, when we pave it all, and it would have to be. I assume we would then, like you said, have some survey information that we can get, and then I assume it would be a conversation in front of council for a public meeting of some sort, whether that's a workshop or
Well,
something. I don't know, to give another public opportunity. And here's the information we've gathered.
Angela, part of that though, the public can't go back to what we had in the past. We know we're going to lose 16 spots, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And that's part of where I come out on the pilot thing here. The pilot gives us a chance to test one end of the goalpost, knowing that if it doesn't work, we're not going to go to the other end of the goalpost anyway, because the rules have changed. And we're just going to go back to having, I guess, 19 of 35 spots.
Thanks.
So I feel like the opportunity to gain data here in a limited amount of time is unusual and we should take advantage of it. Knowing that if the data points badly the other way, people are still going to have to get used to the idea that they're losing slots.
The only data you're gonna get if you eliminate the parking spots will be complaints. You know, you won't be hearing.
Well, but the residents, hopefully, people who are
No, I
positive
understand,
about
but-
it. are going to-
Right, we're, like I said, we've got a survey that's out there right now, and we will reissue it again in the fall and.
When's your survey expected to be completed?
Uh, soon, I think it's, might be June 10th.
Okay.
You might wanna wait until hear that survey.
I
To
think
see if we move forward with the pilot.
the plan was for us to be able to collect the data and be able to present it at our community meeting on June 23rd. So that's gonna heighten everybody's awareness to begin with.
That might be kind of late though, isn't it?
Right, I think you have a decision that you're probably gonna need to make ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think the town manager is trying to get.
Especially after what we saw
Some
today with
inkling
no,
is like,
nothing, Mark.
If everybody hates it, we're not gonna bother doing it, kind of
Yeah.
like we talked about the Route 1 piece, it's like, if we know it's like.
Yeah.
One-sided. It's not worth kind of doing if we have it that way, but it's kind of hard to gauge at this point, so I think that's where it was helpful to kind of put in front of this group, to have the discussion.
So you want us to decide whether to do the trial or not?
And you're one piece of the puzzle, like I said, I think there's also survey, there's what transportation might recommend, there might be other voices that come out. And I'm not sure how that gets determined on. So I think we're gonna hear many voices in different sides of
Sure,
this.
so we've heard a couple.
So it'd be helpful to hear this voice.
Yeah, we've heard a couple people here speak in favor of doing a pilot project for the summer. Is there anyone, based on the information that we know and understanding that we don't have, like all the details aren't fully fully fleshed out. But is there anyone that would have concerns or would not be supportive of a pilot project like this summer?
I think I'd abstain from a vote, but I would be really sad to lose all those spots. I think I wish there was a way, like Roger's saying, a way that we could group bike ped and keep some parking spots there. Or that there was somewhere that we could still give some free spots in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I will say I really like the idea of this pilot project, but I feel pretty strongly that we should try to work in some element of that auxiliary lot to help offset the difference in parking.
Yeah.
Even if it's just, I understand the long-term,
Well, even if that
fully
19
lot.
space is really,
even if it's that, I think that would help.
Yeah, I think that's another data point too, to know like how much they're being utilized, if it's feasible, because again. That kind of gives us a sense of the demand for those spaces, and so. Again, I personally, I think it's a good idea, I think we should do it. I would feel much more comfortable doing it if there was a solution on the auxiliary lot that community services could work through. And I do feel though, like I'm a big believer when you do pilots, you fail and fail fast, you don't do it longer. We do these at work all the time and they become so expensive and stuff when we do pilots. And I know this is slightly different, but I would like to see some criteria that says this is what success looks like, but also this is the decision point we make if for some reason we decided it failed very fast.
I will say to that point, in terms of infrastructure projects in particular, I think you have to account for a little bit of a learning curve. And there's a period of uncomfortableness that you have to be willing to overcome. In order to tell, even if it's gonna fail, you have to feel like you've overcome that. Yes,
and
because we all, like, nobody really likes change. It takes a while to figure things out. If you only ever come to this area for the third week of July, then you've missed it entirely, that kind of thing. But being clear around some framework for that.
But with the same restrictions of on-street parking, you're not gonna have campers and RVs.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
that has-
just to say though, when we're talking about whether this is successful or not. If you do utilize the auxiliary, let's say free parking to offset those spaces. It would be temporary with the pilot, and so then you don't know if it's really successful because it can't be, it's not a long-term solution to use the auxiliary lot on a day-to-day basis for free parking. So if you tie it to the pilot, you might not really get an accurate
Sure.
account. of
Seems like
the
a compromise just to get people to do the pilot.
Right.
Versus like
Actually,
But it might not show the actual impacts to.
I'm with Angela on that one. I'm with Angela on that one, especially since again, if we decide to not go with the non-parking solution, we're still going to go back to a reduction of number of sites on Jones Creek. So the public is going to get used to at some point losing roughly half the number of spaces that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is, on your survey, is the auxiliary parking lot discussed at all?
No, because one of our board members did reach out through Rich, I think, and maybe not through Rich, Jeff Thurlow proposed the back half of the overflow lot where two sections of the fencing could come down and could be blocked off and use that for free parking. And I think we heard that that wasn't an option. And
Yeah, I think with them just reseeding it.
they just
It would be-
reseeded that.
It would
back
be money,
end of it.
again, it would be an expense for the town that we would have to redo that lot ourselves in the fall rather than right now Gorm Sand is doing it, and so it would destroy what they have done.
To me, you just gotta bite the bullet, try the trial and see what the outcome is. Otherwise, if you mess around with the auxiliary lot, you just kind of, you're not gonna get a firm opinion. And you're not gonna know who's using what. Is it just shifting things around?
Sure, maybe that could be something that comes back on the table later if you fully do the pilot without compensating for any parking. So now we're modeling like the most impactful version of this project.
Yeah.
And if the feedback is overwhelmingly by everybody, whoa, we really need more parking down here, that's too much, then maybe there's another conversation to be had about how and where to offset those. Maybe it's that lot, maybe it's a different, I'm not
Park
sure
down
what the
these
other
roads.
options are. But we could have that at that time, or do we find out that, you know, it's a little uncomfortable to lose these spaces, but generally people have figured it out. I don't know the answer to that, but that's because we haven't tried it.
Right.
I'm guessing none of us do.
I think I have good just from this conversation that probably to do the pilot justice, like you said, we should not use the overflow lot. I would just want to make sure in the next newsletter, which is in a couple days, that there's something in there on this that people are aware. I think it's good to say what Peter said of like, currently we have 35 spaces, we will lose.
This is what's happening no matter what.
Yeah, and so we wanna try this to see, and I would love to see. The feedback we get from residents on that, as well as the feedback we get from you guys, and I think that's when. I think the council is gonna wanna see all of that input. To ultimately make a decision, because again, we do, when it comes to beach parking, like. The only thing more political it feels like is the. So. So it does feel like from a safety perspective, it
Yeah.
feels like the right thing to do, at least, like, I think the policy to remove those spaces will address a lot of the safety, which is good. I think the question is do we wanna go even further?
Right.
And that's what the pilot will tell us, but I'd like to hear and see more broad communications to inform that decision.
And in the meantime, then keeping that as temporary, no parking along that stretch, so people don't get back used to it, I guess is what I'm hearing. Possibly, I don't know.
Okay.
I do like John's idea of allowing parking by dogs who can parallel park.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, thank you.
We're gonna deal with world peace next.
Back to. Some rules.
This democracy really is messy, isn't it?
It is, man.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for weighing in on that. Our next item is item 4, a review of this year's transportation related goals of the council.
You want me to?
If you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind, I can walk through, I mean, I did highlight what I thought was transportation and traffic related, but I feel like filling in some blanks on what that might mean or what you guys were envisioning would be really helpful.
Okay, I think it really comes down to the actual goal itself. I see 2 of our goals that I think would be really helpful for this group to help with. So the first one is the actual traffic and transportation goal, if you go down,
Okay.
Angela.
Yeah.
Which is really going back to developing quarter specific plans and key areas like Route 1, Payne Road and Gorham Road. Where we wanna make sure we're being thoughtful about how we address congestion, safety in those specific corridors, which again, we had things listed in here. As things that we wanna make sure get attention. So we've talked about, could we pilot something with tolls where we allow free tolls with MTA. The Portland West project is well underway. I saw somebody today send out the survey. So that's gonna address Gorham. The Downs TMP is something that I'm assuming is still underway.
Yeah.
That could address some of the traffic issues. And I know Angela, you and Autumn, I think, have said that. At least in discussions with them at the time, a lot of it has been focused on the Payne Road corridor in terms of.
The
Um,
next TMP, yeah,
yeah.
we'll be heavily focused on that.
We did the complete streets toolbox, so that's complete. And then we did the Metro bus pilot, so that's complete as well. The CIP, I think this is gonna be a much bigger focus for the finance committee. And because of the townwide transportation study, I know we've talked about how do we prioritize all of those projects that we could do? And how do we look at it over a 20-year, maybe 10-year horizon to say, what are really the priorities and where do we want to put them? There's clearly a lot of angst in our community around property taxes at this point, and I think the CIP is really the place where we have the most discretion of where we want to prioritize things, and some people look at some of these things as wants versus needs. East Grand Avenue didn't pass in the council budget, I think partially because some counselors saw that more as a want than a need, and so I think having you guys provide your perspective of if we were to take the townwide transportation assessment and really develop your lens on what the CIP or the recommendation of how you would prioritize projects over time would be really helpful to that work, because as you can see, it's not just that, there's the vulnerability assessment, which a lot of that touches roads and infrastructure as well. So again, I think between those two things, there's a lot of room to look long-term and say, how do we want to prioritize these? And it kind of ties into the goal, which is really, I think we hear a lot and know a lot that Route 1, Payne Road and Gorham Road seem to be the biggest frustration points for residents. So that's kind of where the council thinks the focus should be near term. And so that might help as you think about prioritization of that plan where you can focus. The other thing that we talked about was the traffic calming policy. It wasn't a council goal, but there was an ask to have this committee take a look at that, see if there's anything that you would suggest now that it's been in place for a couple of years that we may want to tweak. The piece that really prompted the conversation was the feedback that having this like veto authority by the abutter feels like it kind of takes away from all of the feedback from the residents that may be participating. And so is there a different threshold or something else that we would want to consider that would essentially allow, like this is what happened in my neighborhood. I think like 95% of people agreed to put a speed bump on Elmwood, but the direct abutter said no, so it didn't.
Wasn't that because of noise?
For the speed bump?
Yeah.
Wasn't that because of noise?
I
Well,
don't,
by the abutter saying that, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
was that just the yellow speed bump to temporary one?
No, a table.
Oh, there was a table there?
No, yeah, there was a temporary table.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, again, some residents are like, well,
Yeah,
why ask us if one person can
yeah.
veto it? And so again, I get it, like if it's right in front of your house, you should get some weighted perspective, but
It's overrode
Yeah.
by everybody else.
yeah, in the neighborhood. So again, that's the one piece that I think we talked most about. So again, there might be other things we may want to adjust. The third one, that is Councilor Doherty's baby, where he brings it up almost at every meeting, how he doesn't like how Black Point and Eastern Road come together and how it was designed.
I ran through that intersection today and like 4 cars went around. I mean, you can't do it at 30 miles an hour,
Yeah.
but you can still go around.
At Eastern River?
Yeah, I mean, I waited at the
Because
light
there
and
used
just cars were going
Yeah,
by.
there used to be a slip line there.
Yeah,
Well, I guess if this group is, and I know, Council Doherty has brought it up with other intersections in town, and I think he would want a right turn slip line at every intersection, and so that's where this group has talked about. You're balancing, every time you do that, you take away from, bike and ped safety.
And vehicular safety. It is more dangerous, it is more dangerous to have that
Yeah.
configuration for literally everyone.
It's
because
more-
it encourages
To do that at
drivers
the
to
same
move
time, you
more quickly.
close the gap and incentivize
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
traffic through the
Right.
intersection.
So it really goes back to
Safe.
balancing the safety as opposed to the delay it takes. I think what I've heard, and maybe we could have him clarify, but my understanding is the delay of you have a car in front of you, but I could be turning right, but this car is in my way. It's the delay of being able to do that and move traffic, but that countering the safety of all modes. And I have brought, this has come up when that came up. I did talk, we were talking about traffic calming and complete streets through with GP cog when we were doing that exercise. It might be something too, I had talked to Cashel, who's been at this group, and it could be something too that he could provide some more educational material or information even to this group or to a larger audience to kind of talk through what that actually, what the implications of that would be if we started adding those type of things in. To Jen's point, my first go-to is what I've heard from GP cog and others is bike ped, but there's also the, like you said, the vehicle safety of it. That maybe it would take an expert kind of outside of these walls to kind of come in and say, okay, here's what you need to consider. The bigger picture. And so I'd be happy to do that and have someone come back and have those conversations that, you know, with this group or with a larger
I think
audience.
it would be good. I think it would be nice to invite Councilor Doherty
Yeah.
to hear that. And I think it can be not just Black Point and Eastern Road, but
That's what I'm
Black.
saying, it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a sign, are you aware of any kind of sign? As an example, I'm trying to remember where it was now, but I was trying to make a turn. And there was a huge line of cars, vehicles. And I was amazed that nobody would slow down. There was no cars coming. I had to cross, take a left or something. It was just recently, I can't remember where it was, even if it was in this town. But I was amazed that nobody would let me, you know, they were just going slow. They were creeping along, but no one would stop. You know, as a courtesy and say, let you go out. And
What, I guess I don't understand.
well, I'll use as an example, say you're coming out of Eastern Village.
Yeah.
Or say you're coming down Black Point Road, and you wanna turn onto Eastern Road, take a left.
Yes.
And there's a long queue of cars almost stretching
Oh,
down
I
to
do
the
that,
marsh,
just inching.
heading towards Oak Hill.
Yeah.
And nobody would give you a break to let you just sneak in there, because there's a whole line of cars behind you.
Yeah.
That can't go anywhere, because, you know, are you aware of any kind of signage that would say, you know, as a courtesy, you know, I know it's probably.
I think
fine,
it's also probably ties back to safety that if you wave someone in front of you, then are you liable if they get T-boned or you get in an accident? But I have seen in other states where they've had like not blocking intersections. So like to that point, there's like striping that can happen at the intersection. I don't know what the safety numbers look around that.
Yeah.
If people actually abide by it or it becomes more of a safety
I mean,
concern. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
It's like any paint, like paint only solves,
Yeah.
I mean,
paint
this,
arguably doesn't solve any
I
problems.
mean,
That's
I
kinda
was,
how
I
feel
was
about
really
it.
amazed, because the cars, it's not like they were speeding by, they were just going
Yeah.
very slow,
Yeah.
but they would not give an inch, you know?
I've seen it mostly though at like I said, at other locations that it would be like the driveways, like when we talk about. Like what comes to mind is the gas station kind of on Broad Turn Road where you're turning. Where it's so close to the intersection, that is, I've seen so many people get smashed coming in and out of that because it's so tight and like, so if people wave you in or out. You're likely to get an accident, but I've seen in those situations where they do like big X's or
Yeah.
stripes where you can't actually block. Their driveway, but again, I don't know if that's asking for. More of a safety
Well,
issue
I
if
think
people don't follow it.
I think instances like that where it's difficult to make turning maneuvers in and out, if you're adjacent to or within a certain distance of an intersection, that is one thing. If you're, and I'm not saying this specifically for this location, but as an example, you know, if you're like the Eastern Road onto Black Point Road is an example, Highland Ave onto Black Point Road. These other instances where it's a side street coming onto a more major street, if there are frequent occurrences of there being such heavy traffic, and it doesn't have to be standstill, but rolling, like what you're talking about, where that side street person, the person turning off the side street doesn't have adequate gaps in traffic to turn in, that's when you start getting to the point where it's probably worth looking at some other types of traffic mitigation. flashing red light, always stop, things like that. That's the basis for a signal warrant. I'm not saying any of those warrant signals, but it becomes a piece of the puzzle because there's so much activity there. And also crash patterns factor into that as well.
And distance to the next light, I mean, that's.
Right, you have, yeah, it can't be like, it can't be a spill back from a signal, that's the signal problem, but if it's just like general heavy volume of through traffic, that is kind of a different thing.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think on the Eastern Road one, you've got the fact that it's at the bottom of a steep hill, which affects how drivers approach that. And same thing with Highland Ave and Black Point Road. There's a lot of elevation changes that
Mhm.
create blind spots. So all these have idiosyncrasies that need to be brought into effect
If you're on a bike, it's scary.
It's
Yeah.
scary in the
So
car.
just, to just get back to the goals again, what I would
We-
ask is that I think the thing most helpful, that might be a big lift, that I'm assuming Angela would put together the recommendation with your guys' feedback is how do we phase the implementation of the townwide transportation assessment to contribute to the CIP discussion?
Okay.
I think that's probably the meatiest one that would be helpful for the end of this council to try and support. I think the traffic calming and the Scott's items would be good to get to if you can. Those feel like nice to haves, not need to haves, whereas the CIP is gonna be really important that we really understand all capital and what priorities look like so we can better project impact so that we can prioritize them better.
I just want, I guess, a little clarity too around the quarter specific plan. So we do have a master plan for Gorham Road, we have a master plan for Payne Road, we have a master plan for Highest Parkway. Route 1, we have reimagined Route 1. And so are you thinking then we are developing those master plans into more of a preliminary plan? Or are you looking at taking those kind of to a next level, or are you thinking that we just
Part of me
put more
wonders,
meat behind it? Like,
part of me wonders, is it more just explaining all of that in totality to the council so that we understand that, to your point, there is a plan and those plans are coming to life?
Mhm.
And then how do some of these other activities that are in flight, like the Portland West, the Downs TNP,
Yeah, cause
like,
there's,
how do they all
cause
play
there's
into it?
other,
Gotcha.
cause the townwide transportation assessment includes more than just those corridors.
Oh, definitely.
So what you're saying is like, within the big vision of things.
Yeah.
Where do we prioritize, and within those priorities, some things are further along than others.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Angela, that one is probably like, again, I don't know if people understand, like, it might just be a workshop where we say, Angela, can you come and give us the state of the state for these key corridors?
Yeah.
And how you see some of these other things impacting it down the road, like,
Okay.
what I want everybody to feel confident is that we do have a plan. And if we wanted to accelerate the plan, where would we look to accelerate? And again, how does that fit into a CIP?
Yeah.
Where again, that's the choice, right? We can always go faster, it's just gonna cost money and. But again, we have a lot of other things that we need to prioritize as well, so. I kind of see those kind of going hand in hand almost.
Okay, that's helpful.
And the other thing is, the other thing I'd add to that, is, Angela, you've reminded us occasionally that when money appears from the federal government or from the state government, we have to be ready for it, or we have to potentially reprioritize because of the sudden availability of money. And a workshop like that would be a great opportunity to remind the council and the public of those dynamics that are somewhat out of our control, but sometimes will affect us to move very quickly in ways that might have come differently than a CIP might have written down.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like a hard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
Right.
priority, it's like
And
a
that's what we got challenged with, even with our townwide
tier 1,
transportation
tier
assessment.
2.
It's not like this is your first project, this is your second
Yeah.
project. It's-
Balls are in the air.
Yes,
But,
but
Yeah.
from a long-term financial planning perspective,
Yeah.
we need something,
Something.
which can.
Gotcha. You can prioritize.
Yeah.
Buckets,
And it can change every year, so it may not, but it's a starting point to say, here's what we have this year. Things have changed, we've got funding, we're moving this one up, we're moving this one out, like, I think it gives that ability to make some of those choices, and it also allows us to model out all of these costs to say, if we wanted to make sure we're peanut butter spreading it a little bit for predictability, we can't have all $20 million projects happening in year 2 or year 3. We gotta like spread it out a little bit.
Have we as a committee ever reviewed the master plans corridors?
They all started here and ended here. I mean, it was the whole process, like Gorham Road was all the transportation committee, that master plan. I guess we did through here.
What were the years ago, like, how recent were those?
Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's like Gorham Road to John's point is just a huge we did master planning from Oak Hill to Payne Road for Gorham Road. And in order to actually get it done, it's chunked into, I think, 8 different phases. One phase alone is just the bridge. I mean, it's gonna be a huge cost to get across the Nonsuch, and so it's its own phase. Just because we would never be able to get any movement unless you break it up into pieces like that. And so I think when I came, so 2015, Safe Streets for All was starting around the Oak Hill area. So that was probably the start of the Gorham master planning.
You know, if I could just mention
So it's been 11 years. We've been working on it, but we have a lot to show for it. I
Yeah.
mean, I know it's hard, but that's kind of how it works, right? In order to, and without it being too painful for the price tag, you kind of break it up. And I think we have got supportive counsel to keep doing our baby steps one at a time. And we've had to defer years, or when everyone was very angry about traffic jams on Gorham Road, that's when we shifted to East Grand. Like, it's like, everyone's like, okay, we need a break for Gorham Road. So you kind of have to have other projects to be like, okay, that's the next step, but maybe the public's not ready for us to, snarl up traffic again on Gorham Road for another summer. So you kind of have to break that up a little bit too.
when we were talking about Payne Road a year or so ago.
Yeah, that's when we came up with our traffic impact fees based on that master
Okay.
planning, yeah.
And we were talking about sidewalks and bike paths.
Yeah.
On Payne Road.
Yes.
And I was just curious, why couldn't you just have that in planning, but basically just take care of the traffic, which is the issue right now, the traffic. And I was told, I think you told me, well, you gotta do the whole thing. And I don't understand why you can't have it planned, so in the future, you can accommodate those other things, but deal with the more urgent portion of the corridor at the moment. And that way, I mean, let's face it, everything in this town is based on taxes. I mean,
Well, at the time that was in the conversation when we were talking about that was around traffic impact fees. So it was more of, what do we want the corridor to look like and how are we gonna pay for that corridor to look that way? So, and then also, I think what you're alluding to is when we start talking about building out, say, the base gravel, you don't just build to the travel lane, you build out to the shoulders. And so that gravel's out of there, maybe you don't pave it. So yes, you could do it in phases, but when you look at percentage wise, like it's a $20 million project, and if you don't do that, how much are you saving? Are you saving 5%, 2%? It's very small in the grand scheme of things. You're saving a little bit of money that then you're gonna have to do as its own standalone project, which then is more substantial.
all right, let me just throw this out there, take Highland now.
Yeah.
Now, it's my understanding there's supposed to be bike lanes going all the way up to Pleasant Hill Road or something like.
A multi-use path, yeah, it's in
Multi-
the
but now that-
DOT's work plan.
Now,
Yeah.
that's been around for a while now.
Yep,
So. Why, I mean, it's coming down to priority funding and all that stuff is what I'm
Right.
getting at. So there are certain things, I mean. This town, the problem is traffic. Frankly, it's not bikes, it's not. Pedestrian sidewalks and everything, it's traffic. That's what people are upset about.
Yeah.
And so to me, I mean, I have no problem putting all these other things in, like like I said in one of our previous meetings, Fog Road is a good example. And actually Scott brought this up at a recent town council meeting, just put an extra bit of pavement for an apron. So people could just walk and walk their dog or ride their bike or something in that 3 or 4 foot section. You don't need a formal sidewalk with curvings and all this other stuff. This town, I mean, I think I also read somewhere where we only have 4% of the town has sidewalks. Isn't that something like that? I mean, that's,
It makes sense, we have a lot of roads.
we do have a lot of roads, but we don't have many sidewalks, okay?
The
And,
people aren't gonna walk in the streets, so.
well, I remember I was on a transportation committee maybe 20 years ago in this town, and we're doing a study of Route 1. They were doing a study on Route 1, and it was all professionals, right, except for me, literally. And there was a professional engineer, and he said a sidewalk would never be allowed on Route 1 the way Route 1 is constructed right now, a 4-lane road with a center turn lane. They would never allow, the state would never put a sidewalk in there.
But you're saying 20 years ago they went.
Yeah, that's what the comment he made 20 years ago.
So, yeah, I think a lot has changed in 20 years.
Yeah, because he said the sidewalk, his reasoning was, it's not safe, the sidewalk's right on the edge of the road. And that's a high-speed road right now.
So just, I mean, I don't know if everybody's familiar with all of these plans, but it might, like, when I think of process next steps, like, it would be nice for the committee to get reacclimated with these plans and make sure that everybody has a good understanding and as like a precursor to a workshop. Because I think the question at the workshop, or maybe even for the committee, is if we wanted to go faster, what would be the recommendation of where we'd want to go faster in these corridors? Which again, helps to inform a CIP discussion on not just the master plans we have in place, but all the other things that we may want to do that are in the other plan to make sure that, you know, we get a recommendation that says, in order to take the great work we've done and carry it forward and get it done, this is the recommendation, but all this other stuff that we want to do, what's the sequencing we would want to do, and kind of try and think a little bit about, you know, overall costs to make sure we're not loading too much, because I think what we try and do with the CIP is make it predictable. And so, and this year, because we have the communication tower that, again, the feedback some counselors have, and I kind of agree, is like, we should know these things, we should have it laid out. And even though it's subject to change, we should know that there are some big costs coming. So even what you put in there, Angela, for dollars, I don't know if it's like the best estimate, where again, we need to say some projects are under 1 million, some are between 1 and 5, some are 5 plus, like, doesn't have to be precise science, but it just gives us, yeah,
In today's dollars.
yeah.
Right, yeah, it's important.
And the master of connection, a master plan for connectivity.
Yeah.
Like sidewalks and so
Yeah.
on, that play into planning, that play into long-range planning and so on. We want connectivity as opposed to just lots of dead-end streets or strange sight lines like that design of Eastern
Yeah.
Road at Black Point, you know,
And
that whole angle.
I think what's really hard for people to understand, and even the council, is like, to your point, Roger, like, most people go to like improving traffic is the number one thing. I think we also have to consider safety and knowing where we're making safety choices. And this is where the vulnerability assessment comes in a little bit, because I think some of those choices that are also infrastructure really are about, my opinion, like long-term safety of the neighborhoods. And so that's where we also have to like understand some of these. Well, I would say the residents' number one concern is traffic movement. I think we also have to balance that with safety and make sure that we're not just focusing on movement, because it won't be great if we have a lot of movement and people are less safe walking or on their bikes or even driving. So we've got to factor those two things in.
Well, like you said, it's that balance, and this group has talked about it over and over again, even with the surveys, is confusing because when you're balancing mobility and safety, and like you said, we hear a lot about getting around, but we also, I feel like I hear just as much as slow traffic down. We get traffic calming, right? So you get the two ends of the spectrum. And so trying to balance that,
Like,
so
in
the
the
service is
neighborhoods,
not
they want-
clear on
they
what
want
you're
it-
asking.
They want it
Yeah, in
slow.
the neighborhoods.
They
yeah,
wanna get there
slow.
fast.
But then once they're out of their neighborhood, they want to boom.
Yeah, but people that live on, say, Pine Point Road, or even we hear on
Yeah.
Payne Road are saying, no, this is my neighborhood
Yeah.
street is Payne Road, I
Yeah.
don't want people going 60 miles an hour on it.
Black Point Road, I'll tell you, it's just.
Or Black Point Road is example, people
It's
actually
freeway.
live there and it is their local street also, is the challenge, right?
And it's, so how do you balance residents who actually live there versus people in the community who drive there? I mean, you got two really different competing issues.
Well, you know, we, like, and I speak about the area where I live because I'm familiar, and I'm sure it's the same with all the other neighborhoods in town.
Yeah.
But, for instance, we've mentioned the, Black Point Road intersection to, Highland Avenue. I mean, that is so damn dangerous, it's incredible, and then also coming off of Highland Avenue where Chamberlain, now there was supposed to be some signs there, you know? I mean, that's dangerous right now with all the new houses and everything right there.
There was supposed to be what?
I thought there was supposed to be some signs, some signage put up and some changes to that intersection, like,
They cut the trees down. for
I know
sidewalks,
that,
is
but
what you mean?
maybe a stop sign at Chamberlain, as
Oh.
Chamberlain.
We did bring that DOT, but it needs to meet
That
warrants.
had to be DOT or.
Well, you still have to follow a standard way to kind of calculate out to see if it's warranted, because what we got from DOT is it can cause more accidents. If
Yeah.
people aren't expected to stop, it's the same thing we have at Maple Ave. We have stop signs that shouldn't be there, so
Yeah.
people are more likely to
yeah.
get in an accident because there's a stop sign there.
Muzzy Road going on to Payne right now. With Costco and everything, I mean, I don't know why people try to get
Avoid
out
it.
on the Payne Road from Muzzy,
Avoid it.
That's a good example of like turning into heavy volume
Yes.
and not getting the gaps that you need.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
That's a signal warrant all day long.
Yeah.
I think a good example of a good place, right? Yeah, okay, so this is helpful, I think, John,
That is
Angela,
helpful,
you
thank
have
you.
what you need
Yeah, if you start this.
And for goals. Okay, great.
Started with dinner and.
Now for the lightning round.
It is 7:30, so I'll go quick. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of some, like, the recent council actions and stuff too, because we did do, there was a workshop in May to talk about the pilot project about, where DOT was looking at eliminating that, one of the travel lanes, across the marsh to see how that would function. That did get shot down. A letter officially went to DOT from the town, saying that, we were not in favor of moving forward with that pilot this summer. So I just want to make sure that word is getting out that that is not happening, because I think there is still a little confusion whether or not that's happening. So I think you'll see another blast. I asked Allison, our communication director, to kind of put that out again, just to make sure that's clear.
Hey, Angela, is there any update on what would be the next step or what would be part two or anything?
DOT has said they don't really have any other options for bike and ped across the marsh, but we did craft the letter in a way to DOT asking for them to keep that communication open and try to work with us on any alternatives for bike and ped across the marsh. It's not clear what that next step is, or if there's next step.
Just wanted to.
We have asked for a next step, but I don't know what that.
Just wasn't sure if it was a complete closed door or whether.
The pilot is a complete closed door. We have made that clear.
Gotcha.
Are they moving forward with just their design at this point, or, because that was something that they were gonna do, right?
So they want to finalize their design. The last communication was us saying, we're not gonna do the pilot, but is there any other can we set and have, basically wanting to coordinate
What other
with that, maybe
options?
one last time to see if there's really anything. And that would include police and fire, public works, to talk about maybe some reallocation of what that cross section looks like, because I know what DOT was responding to was trying to respond to all of our needs, right? Saying what public safety needed for breakdown lanes and what we needed, say, for bike and ped. And so if we had our long wish list, here's what we want, and they just can't accommodate it, maybe it's back to everybody back at the table and saying, again, going back to you said, what's our want and what's our need? And what is the likelihood that we need all of this room for certain things?
Yeah.
And we talked about maybe reducing the travel lane widths, which also would help maybe reduce the speeds, those type of things.
Well,
Which
I guess in that sense, are we expecting the DOT to come back with a new design? Or what are we expecting for the next thing to come back from DOT?
I think the most realistic I would have is I'm hoping that DOT will say, yeah, let's sit down and have a meeting
Yeah.
with key staff from different departments with the town and do a little brainstorming is my goal for next steps. Before they finalize the plan.
Yeah.
Because once they finalize the plan, the conversation ends.
Yeah. I feel
What is
like
the what is their, do you have a sense of what their timing is to get to that
There
final
is
point?
the federal funding that they want to utilize is called the Protect Grant, which is not funded right now through this administration. So they're kind of thinking with any kind of change in Washington that eventually some resiliency, or it's really about resiliency planning and resiliency projects might come back.
And when you refer to finalizing the plan, that's what you're talking about, racing the road.
Raising the road, yeah.
Okay.
But they
And
don't want to
what the
do,
road looks like.
they don't want to
Yeah.
spend the money on finalizing to get to construction
Sure.
plan set.
Yeah.
And then have to redesign it, so that's what the pilot was gonna help kind of direct her.
Can I ask a question? Because this, like, now that every time I drive down that part of the road, I'm always like, it's so wide. It's like, how could this not work? So
Yeah.
if they reduce the speed limit and make the lanes smaller, like what does that really mean? And how much extra space does it get us? And like to Roger's point, maybe it's not like exactly what we want in terms of like a really long or wide sidewalk, but it's safer space than what we have today. And so that's where I'm like,
Yeah.
there's gotta be something that allows for it to be better than it is today without it having to be 3 lanes. So that's where I'm like, what could make it better? Not perfect, but better. And again, I just, every time I'm driving down that road now too, I'm like, why does it change from whatever it is to like, I just,
50 miles an hour,
Yeah.
it's just like.
so you're like, you're like incented to like hit the gas and go.
As you're driving it, is that you're 4 feet higher, which means your side slopes have to
Yeah.
go out.
Mhm.
So it's not a wall, it's going out. So if you think about that, it's the width. And you come up 4 feet, you just got narrower, right? So that's a big part of it. But exactly to your point, my point is, in order to have that conversation, you need everybody at the table. I need to hear police or fire or public, here's their concerns with, so when we do look at like, what are the options? We have everyone's voice at the table.
Yeah.
And so we're not going down a path that then we have to pivot.
Mhm.
Okay, so Metro Connect, the expansion of the service, did move forward, with the agreement. There was, a question that we received, over the weekend too, about kind of next steps with that. I did reach out with Metro today. So they had done some public outreach to try to determine and look at destinations to try to figure out the micro transit where that would happen in town. Those meetings and information and feedback they got from the public informed kind of the bubble they created, and looking at, we're gonna have one van, what can that service based on the information and destinations they got in town. They are still open to having continued conversations to say, we get started and we hear people want to tweak that, saying, well, you kind of missed this, like maybe we didn't think about this destination or that's just outside the bubble. And then you go a little, say, farther south, which then brings the north in a little bit. Like it still is really a service layer because they don't want it to be extended wait periods. But the question was, is there going to be additional public meetings? And they are open to doing that before the startup. Because it sounds like they're always anxious to gather more feedback and information.
When
It
it-
doesn't mean that the launch will change. It doesn't mean that, I think what they are thinking is, yep, we'll take in more information. But it might not change the initial launch. It's gonna look like what council saw. This is the bubble. Here's what we're gonna launch. But we can continue to have public conversations, and get feedback on that. And so one of the things I talked to Metro about today, because it sounded like there was maybe some interest in that, is, looking at our July meeting date, for transportation, which is the fourth Tuesday of July, is instead of having it as a transportation committee meeting, is doing just a public meeting about the Metro Connect in a bigger venue and where you guys would maybe be available because it's kind of on your calendar already. It's also the summer months, which I know is hard sometimes to get quorum, so I thought maybe that would be a good opportunity to do that. And we just do it, say, the public safety building or something larger. And Metro would come in. I think they're a little bit more of also thinking if we did it in this group, he's like, you're gonna hear the same thing I keep saying to this poor group keeps hearing the same thing. And so maybe posing it as kind of like a bigger public meeting to have that conversation around. Does anyone, we take in more feedback?
This is somewhat related, but a little bit more broad. I think a really great way to kind of solicit public opinion and really get public involvement often can be going to people as opposed to holding a public meeting about something. And two opportunities that I've seen council sometimes does that are really great to reach a broad swath of the town are tabling at our polling at the votes that we have, which can be a little difficult because it's on Tuesday when a lot of people are working, but also Summerfest is a great opportunity to get a table out, talk to people. Maybe we might want as a transportation committee to have a table at one of those events and discuss, GT Metro, but also other, townwide transportation issues and
So
feedback.
Metro does have a space at Summerfest. We talked with the library about some of their events that they're gonna do. And so those were more about kind of here's what it is. And so people are aware and are more likely to say utilize it if they know what it is. And like you said, I actually talked to Metro about bringing the van, like parking it down at Summerfest with their table and stuff, so people can kind of look at it and see what it is and all of that. I think what we were asked, and John, I guess you forwarded the email to, or was part of that email, was my understanding was they didn't want that to substitute a big formal public meeting to talk to Metro about, like they were seeing those as two separate things.
The both situation.
Right?
When are they talking about launching?
So that's the other thing with the delay. So the reason why we're looking around July is there potential to start the micro transit as early as, say, the end of August, beginning of September. The other won't be available. The fixed route won't be ready until October now because of the delay with the signing of. And so they're also thinking, do we roll it out all together so that people don't get into bad habits of kind of using microtransit in a way that it shouldn't be used, because it's about connecting to the fixed route. So they're still trying to toy with when that starts, but basically this fall, it would be October 1 is really the date they're targeting now for everything to be operational. And when we talked about dates for being ahead of that as a public meeting, July seemed to be the sweet spot for them. So that's why I threw out maybe the date we had. And then that's, like I said, and then on top of that is kind of these public events that you're describing too, that they want to be a part of.
So, Sans, I like your idea of the transportation committee doing something at Summerfest. The rec advisory board did it last year where they had people there.
Yeah, that's a great,
And again, thinking of the CIP, like, again, if we had a list of all the items and said, you get to pick 5, and we want you to write your top 5 on here. That's like a way to engage people and get their feedback, and we need to do that. We need to think of something for the council booth, so maybe it could be a joint booth where it's the council and the transportation committee really wanting to get your feedback on traffic and prioritization on these, so that could be. So that way the pressure is less on you guys to have to be there, but if you wanted to, I could talk to the council about like, do we want that to be our theme for the Summerfest?
Always seems to be at the top of the community survey,
Yeah,
too much traffic. But it's also teasing out that question of where are people coming up with this too much traffic? Where are you experiencing?
yeah.
Right.
How does it
We
work?
need a little more detail.
Right,
And
right.
if we give them a long list and say you get to pick your top 5,
Yeah.
it's like, don't, like, some people might say about their specific neighborhood, but it's like, but that's not in the top, that's not in the list, you gotta pick from the list.
Right.
I like the like sticker voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, where you can kind of like see pretty quickly.
That might be a way to organize it, if you just have them all on big boards.
Yeah.
Or if you don't wanna, if you don't want them to know what the majority are going for.
Sure, you
do it
could
in
all-
buckets or something, you
Yeah.
put your,
Yeah.
we did that with the vulnerability assessment, you get so much money. So
Yeah.
you get paper, you
Yeah.
get
that's
big
a-
dollars,
that's a great-
where are you putting your dollars?
Yeah.
And you can load up. in some-
$5,
Yeah,
spend it wisely.
Right, you got $5, where are you spending it, yeah.
Now, regarding the 26th of July meeting, one thing might be useful is to make sure either the town or the metro contacts the associations. Like, for instance, the Downs has an association, okay? Now, I don't know, you know, the Uplands down there, the seniors?
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's officially part of the Downs Association or not, but the different associations connected with, say, the senior housing. All right, to make them aware of this public meeting. And if they can participate in this public meeting, because to me, they seem to be the market, I think, for using that service. And I would even go down to Dunstan too. There's gonna be an association down there.
So you're saying we should target the senior housing?
Well, any
That's
of
what
these
they're-
associations with a density of people,
Mhm.
all right, associated
Are
with.
you just talking about to help get the word out about the
Yes, about
workshop,
the meeting,
about the public meeting?
yeah.
Sure.
So that they're aware that there's an opportunity for them to, like, right now, there's nothing being proposed for Dunstan in terms of this metro.
Well, the microtransit is there.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I
Yeah.
mean, but if they were aware, you know, the Dunstan Crossing, the whole development in there, and the apartment building down there, the Burnham
Yeah.
Apartments and things like that.
Yeah,
They may be interested, geez, I like.
yeah, I have,
Is that
well,
too
no,
much?
no, it's just, I'm connecting the dots now. What you're saying is that, even with like, so every year I gotta chase down homeowners association, these associations or stormwater related stuff. It's not easy
Yeah, okay.
to find like the person you contact or how you reach out.
Well, maybe put it on a reader board somewhere, in business.
Yeah, no, I agree.
These-
I agree. It's
So like
getting
the
that
people
word out,
who are
yeah.
down at Investor down there.
Yeah.
doesn't
I
Metro
would
do a lot
say-
of communication and press, so like, I would think, is this something that they can,
Who?
Metro, like, could they
Right, yes.
handle a lot of the
They're,
promoting?
they have their own, how they target too. They have experience, yeah, with trying to get that out too, yeah.
Kind of back to the Summerfest and you were
Yeah.
talking about the ban,
Yeah.
would Metro like bring the bus for people to come out and check, and people can stand there and be like, here's how you download the app, here's how you tap
Yeah,
on, here's how you
exactly.
do that stuff, because
Yeah.
it seems like a lot of the talk is the hardest ride is the first one. So
Yeah.
just having people somewhat familiar, they're
It's like
not.
with the kids learning to ride the school bus.
I mean, I put my kid, but I put, my son last year, he got to ride the fire truck and the dump
Yeah.
truck and stuff.
Now,
Adults.
I don't know if they'd bring a bus. I know they talked about bringing the van.
Yeah,
It didn't matter on how much room, but like
Yeah,
you're
but
right,
usually
there's
just like
such a
Metro,
traffic.
I don't know if they have
Public
extra
Works has
ones.
space, then we just put the bus there, but it's just if they have one available.
Now, as an enticement to get us to attend this, would Metro come and pick us up so we don't have to worry about parking?
yeah,
You ride your bike or walk.
On the
Had pizza and walked over. Put your steps in.
I think that's exciting to, look forward to them coming to some of those
And I do
events.
know, the library is very excited about doing events, and I know Metro is very big on all of those, like, learn to ride. And so they've done with the age-friendly group, with the library, and to your point, Craig, it's just kind of like, they just do little workshops, like they do lunch and learns or whatever, and they'll show up at the senior lunches and just do like, here's how you download it, here's what we do, and
I'm in an old video that was
yeah,
promoting the Metro.
there you go.
You're in an old
I was an actor, I did it for.
Oh, it just seems like there's such a,
Good for your writing for life.
there is like a decent amount of like, I'd say selection bias of people who show up to town sponsored events and.
Yeah.
Summerfest is not
Yeah.
the same,
Right,
half
exactly.
dozen, dozen people
Yeah.
going to everything, so it's gonna be good.
Be
opportunity.
interesting to set a table at the beach.
Yeah.
We'll do the transportation one, just ask that you put it next to the stormwater one, so I can.
No, but you know, going back to what I was saying before, state manufactured homes, okay?
Yeah.
Those people, that's a community
Yeah.
unto itself down there. And they have no idea what's going on in the rest of town. They literally don't, okay, so. That, you know, let them know that there's something, if.
Yeah.
There's a metro going right by their place. And, just to make them aware of it.
And
I mean, the more-
again,
the more
Metro has
people
gone
get
to their community.
Interested in
center.
doing this, the more successful it's gonna be.
So Roger, I think that is that, so Metro did go to that group and went to their specific community center
Okay,
and
good.
did like a lunch and learn thing.
Okay, good, okay,
Yeah, so they are doing, like I said, I think Metro has done this enough where they
yeah,
kind of do know how to tap into that, so especially their demographics that they know are, they're gonna be the
Yeah.
ridership. Yeah,
okay.
Okay, great. Two more. Actually,
East Grand Ave, just making sure everybody is aware that that did get pulled out of the FY 27 budget, at the last minute, and so we were just talking about, whether that comes back next year, that was a long process, so I'm kind of curious on what kind of feedback we'll hear from the Pine Point residents. And also we did have tax funding associated with that, so that gets a little tricky on whether that is still viable. So we might wanna have to look at, if it does come back, look at other options for funding offset, or if there's something we do completely different, if there's something we do temporary, I mean, it kind of puts everything back on the table.
I don't remember offhand what the tax funding was for that one or what the share.
It was
match.
through the UPI, so it was a large project, so it's the 4 million, so we were only getting like 10%
From.
PAX through the UPI, because it did not get into the federal funding.
Yeah.
Stream, it's all just state, so, and again, it was because we've been trying to get into that for 10 years and it's just not
Yeah.
a priority corridor, for federal funds, so, that was kind of what we could get.
I just want to, give everyone an explanation, particularly Angela, because I ended up coming out against the East Grand Ave project. And it was really centered around the difficulty that, the work on this budget this year, that there were really significant cuts to the schools, to other places, but yeah, particularly to the schools. John knows this much. I try to watch as many council meetings as I can, but I'm not really watching everything. But there was, I guess, a goal to cap it at 0%, and that changed to 2%. Despite inflation right now being 3.8%, so that's actually purchasing power. That's a significant reduction in, and with the schools, it necessitated Several positions being eliminated. Good friend of mine is one of them, class sizes being increased in elementary schools. And East Grand Ave to me felt, it's such a nice design. It's a beautiful design and, if there was, all the money in the world, it should be the design. But for me, I started to feel really strongly that $4.5 million, I guess only 4 million for the town, but that amount of money for a half-mile stretch, given the need, not just the transportation need, and there's huge transportation need throughout town for, complete streets, for other, traffic improvements, but also considering the town-wide budget as a whole, school budget, that there could be a way to make East Grand Ave a safe and complete street in a sense, for a fraction of that cost. If we were to embrace the shared roadway, that a 25-mile-per-hour street can have. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with that type of a layout, but where you embrace traffic calming. So, what we talked about with, raised crosswalks and, really make sure that traffic is flowing at that speed limit, 25 mph lower, and, embrace that shared roadway, so that, cyclists, can navigate that street safely. And at the same time, that sidewalk is shed, that needs to be, rebuilt, of course, but if there's a way that you can do East Grand Ave as a complete street without having to do a total reconstruction, there's could be a significant, millions of dollars in savings there, just putting that into, that sidewalk, being rebuilt and traffic calming and having a shared roadway, and that would free up significant funds to spend, on other, projects that are really needed throughout town. So it started with a conversation with Michelle, where I was trying to advocate for the schools. And then I spoke at our counselor conversation, in North Scarborough about it, and then I wrote an email about that. So I just wanted to take credibility for the fact that accountability, thank you, for the fact that I did that, and I also know personally for you, Angela, that is a project that you've put a significant.
And I said to John before he came in, staff, I've been doing this long enough that I don't take anything personally. Like, I've been working, yes, I've been working on this since 2014 or something, but I'm really just guided by, this is what the residents want, and we keep working on it, and if the priorities change, the priorities change. I do not take that personally whatsoever. I will say, again, and we're just taking it as, it's been a long path, so I hear what you're saying, because I am in complete agreement. I think Jen and I had a conversation earlier on too about that. It was like sharing the road and things like that. That's not the direction I got from the public. So for me, I can't just say, I'm gonna ignore public comment because it costs too much and we're gonna go a different way. So that's kind of like what led us to, like you said, say, maybe the perfect design isn't what we can afford. And so maybe it's a different conversation with the community to say, you either get something less or you get nothing. That's a different conversation. We've never had that conversation. It was more about just kind of continuing to work on the design on what we got for public feedback, which I don't feel like as staff I can say, no, that's too expensive. You're not gonna get granites on the curb or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, and maybe that's a, it's a very specific example, but still, it's like, that's what the community wants. Then we keep heading down a path and to a point where it's like, okay, we can't afford that. That's a different conversation that I don't know if that's the next conversation or what. that would be a question for the group.
Well, I think this project is a really, or this instance, this occurrence is like a really good lesson for us, for me, and I'm familiar, I'm familiar with a lot of these types of projects here and elsewhere. But we talk a lot about like balancing safety and mobility within a project, within a transportation project envelope. We talk a lot about balancing transportation projects against each other. Which of these would you prioritize? What are your top 5, But this body, and largely because it's not fully our responsibility, but I think this has reminded me that we don't operate in a bubble, that there's a balance there too between these projects and a lot of other things in town. And the way that, in theory, you have parts of your budget, right, that are like, well, this is what we're gonna allocate towards infrastructure projects this year, and this is generally what we think we're gonna put towards the school. But when push comes to shove and the conversations get hard to have, those can be interchangeable. And yes, that's the question, is like, are we, as a community, do we want to invest $4 million down here, or do we want positions at the school? And it's not quite that direct, but that's the balance that all of us, I think, as residents and committee members and our counselors and other, that we look to staff to kind of help us sort that out. And so
And just throwing out there too, that every time, like even we went from the bi-directional bike lane, that shift in design actually cost us another $25,000 that we had to try to find somewhere. So every time too, you tweak the design, it's more money. And so now we're at the end and we have a design, but if we want to do something else, I'm gonna have to go back to CIP and get for design money, because we're gonna have to tweak it, right? So there's just keeping that all in mind, everything costs money.
Yeah.
I just heard Jen Ladd for town council.
No.
That's what I heard.
I just have another point to, I guess, stating this is that I just want to throw out there too, is that I think unfortunately what came out of this too is, I think in some of your writing too is saying as a transportation committee member, and you kept talking about that. And I hear it a lot with like Allison Bristol came in meetings and saying, I'm speaking now as a resident, or even the Pine Point, the lady that came and saying, okay, here's what the group kind of thought, but as my resident speaking to myself, I think unfortunately your words got twisted a little bit and it came across at council as you were telling council that the transportation committee was not in favor. I think Tom tried to clarify that at some point and saying, no, the transportation committee actually recommended this project. I think that got twisted, unfortunately, so I would just caution you in the future, just kind of make sure that's clear for anybody on any committee, because we've had this conversation with other committee members, like the Conservation Commission and sustainability. It's really clear is that as a group, there might be a certain opinion, but you can have an opinion of your own as a resident. It's just making sure that's very clear, because it got very twisted.
Clear that that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Because it kind of came across as transportation committee doesn't even want this, and I think that had to be clarified, which it did. So I will put that out, but just caution you on that. And like I said, it's not pulling you out. It's all the committees
I'm
that
really
do it also.
sorry.
Yeah. And I know it wasn't the intention, and so that's why I brought it up too, I know it was not your intention to speak for the committee, but I think you get little sound bites and then you hear, the telephone happens, right? And it's like, well, I heard from this person, then it becomes something else, so. That's why I'm now aware that there are people that, like Allison Bristol is one that we do hear that a lot. She's like, I'm gonna speak for myself.
Yeah.
There's certain people, and it probably because that has happened in the past, you get kind of burnt on that. That is, now it makes sense to me when people do that. But, yeah, keeping that in mind.
Well,
yeah.
I would just say, as you guys work on the CIP, this is one of those things that you guys can think about in terms of what the recommendation is of like, when do we pick this back up?
Mhm.
Because again, I think that is something I know the residents said specifically at their public comment was that this has been going on a long time. We keep telling them we're gonna do something. And I feel like we kick the can again. And for them and the public process, to your point. Like, I hate the notion of going out to the public, getting feedback and then saying, well, we don't like your feedback, so we're gonna do something different. So I do think for me, we need to make sure that when we go through robust public process, like you said, Angela, like we need to respect that, because then what's the point in doing it if we're just gonna disregard it and do something completely different?
Well, I don't hear that the message was, we're not gonna pay attention to what you wanted. But it is a difficult situation. I mean,
Yeah.
balancing the budget, because God knows everybody is pressed in on all sides, particularly
I have a
now.
question about that, like, is there, and I apologize, because we did, like, this project has been going on a long time, so I forget some of the details and touch points that we've had with it, but, is there, or would there be a good point in a project to do like a gut budget check on that, where like, okay, we heard the feedback, we've got a preliminary estimate from the design team this looks like it's gonna be upwards of $3 million. Are we,
But I think that's where we started. So we did 3 design processes. We did
do
the
they all
PDR.
have estimates?
Yes.
Okay,
And we
Sorry.
did our preliminary design. So coming out of the preliminary design, we did have a number that was approaching 4 million.
Yeah.
So we did know, and so if you look at our 5-year CIPs, it's been
It's in there.
carried, like here it comes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it has been there. It wasn't out of the blue.
Yeah.
I will say.
yeah,
You know,
I think in this case, I think it's the other context, I think.
Yeah, the other context, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this, in a tough budget year,
Mhm.
I think this project specifically was politicized to be a giveaway to concerns of residents about taxes, because it really has no impact on this year's budget. So
Right.
if that was the concern, whether this was funded or not, wasn't gonna change the bottom line at the end of the day. And so I think all we've done is kick the can. So if we've deferred it as is, it's just gonna be more expensive and we've likely lost tax funding. If it's gonna be de-scoped, that's more money, more time that we have to spend doing it. So I feel like in terms of savings, if that was really the intent, I don't see how we're saving anything. I think it's just gonna be potentially a lesser project, but maybe just as expensive, because now it's gonna be 2, 3, 4 years out. So again, I think it's unfortunate, but again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. I think your intent behind it was correct, honest, based on what you shared. So I don't think that's a bad thing. And sometimes we just gotta make choices, and that was the choice that was made. So we accept it, we move on, but we gotta figure out like what is the next step and what is gonna happen down there. And the answer may also be nothing. That's also
The
an
sidewalk
answer.
at least should be repaired, even if.
Yeah, so maybe part of the sidewalks master plan will address it perhaps. But yeah, to me, it's still unclear like what the next step is, and I don't like that we motion to amend something this far out without clarity for the residents of what's next after significant public engagement occurred.
You know, can I, regarding what Jen said about like red check. This has been going on for a long time. It's primarily, helping the residents and the people who use that particular area. And what struck me was, I wonder how many people in town really realized, even though there was publicized from time to time, that this was gonna happen, this was in the works, and this is what it was gonna cost. And
But also why?
I
It's
think,
not just for the residents. I mean, you're talking about the number of people who parked there for the beach and so on. I mean, it was not just for the residents. It was a matter.
And I guess I don't know if there could be any more public outreach and
Yeah.
communication than we had for East Grand
It might have
Ave.
been
I don't
maybe,
think, like,
maybe too much, like,
I don't know, to say that nobody knew, I don't know.
people don't know what's going on.
I know, but what can,
I know you can't do much more. I think we do a great job communicating.
I don't know, living in another town, I can say,
Yeah.
it's head and shoulders.
Well,
Well, I
that's
think,
what
I think it is,
provide
I
out
think
there.
to Sansa's point, it is like a very localized
Yeah.
thing, so I
Yeah.
do see a lot of people, but I kind of equate this, well, it's not apples to apples. It's almost like the Scotto Hill Road thing where we're saying we're gonna spend $4 million to fix a culvert that is helping some people out in West Scarborough get around when they already have other options to get around. But we're not gonna help enhance safety in this corridor because it's just not as important. So I feel like that's the tough part of these like local projects, but at the end of the day, they all eventually probably need to happen, and that's where, again, the CIP, I keep going back to that, because I think that's where you can like have trade-offs, move things, make sure that we're covering, do we have localized projects, big projects, safety project, like, we need to look at it holistically. And then also layer in the affordability component to say, what is comfortable to spend annually in traffic infrastructure, and how are we making sure we're balancing that? And again, that's not a perfect science, because there's gonna be certain projects that are just gonna.
Like
Yeah, or
Scarborough came up
emergencies,
from
yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was not.
Well, it's like the Gorham Connector too, when that was
Yeah.
going, I mean, the people were in my neck of the woods.
Didn't know about it.
Well, we knew, you know, it was in the paper, but it really
It
didn't
didn't-
bother us.
didn't
It
feel
wasn't
personal.
affecting us.
Yeah,
Well, and everybody thought that was gonna be a done deal.
Well, and I just think you gotta let the, you know, in certain things, it may be in the, like that down there at East Grant, excuse me. But you've gotta make sure the whole public is aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you do it, because we do have great communications. I gotta tell you, in our neighborhood, Jen, where we live, they don't even know who the town manager is, who the superintendent is. I mean, they just don't know these things. It's just incredible,
I
you
agree
know?
with that.
when you run for town council, Roger, this can be your platform, driving better communication.
All
When I
the
run
big-
for
Oh,
town
there we
council,
go.
the town's in trouble.
Well, to
Well,
tell you
just,
the
you
truth,
know, the next, so Forum Road, the next piece is
Correct.
gonna that bridge, and this, it's gonna be 4 million plus. And so that's,
But-
again,
but
a
that
major
affects a
quarter
lot of-
though,
Yeah,
so hopefully it gets
Yeah,
support,
everybody
but
sees that all the
it's
time.
coming,
Yeah.
it's there. It's in the, you know, looking out, the.
a lot of
sketch piece.
people don't even pay attention to what's going on in their own neighborhood.
That's true.
I mean, they live in their own little
Yeah,
bubble.
yeah.
I mean, with regard to the metro project, I've had several people comment to me, well, finally, the town's paying attention to the needs of elderly people. We've spent a lot of time talking about schools and expensive schools, but I've had a lot of people comment to me after our meeting.
Good feedback.
It's, you know, this is something that's really gonna help us. And that one woman who testified, you know, how much money she was spending on Uber just to go to the store and to medical appointments. So I think the balance thing continues to
Yeah.
have to be an issue. And what communities of service are we serving?
But even those communities are factioned, you know,
Oh, yeah.
because a number of years ago, when they were talking about a community, a senior center and a community center for, you know, in one thing. And I happened to be a library trustee at the time. We thought we'd be doing a good job. We'd bring the state manufacturers people together with there was a group out of the community services, I don't know, like 55 plus or something like that. We'd bring them together and we brought them to the library. And then all of a sudden the Civil War broke out, you know? I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it's, you know, you can't
People are
just assume it's a
territorial.
senior group.
Yeah,
They all
It's a
have
senior
their
group and
opinion.
they're all, it's all group think, you know, it's not.
it's like the question of, do we have one big elementary school or do we have neighborhood schools? I mean, you got the same kind of conflict of people who come from different perspectives,
Yeah.
so.
The
Yeah.
final one I just had on there, just so, because we continue to talk about is Scotto Hill Road, and just wanted to make sure this group is aware that we have applied, we did receive, approval of a grant to remove the culvert, but council had asked to keep all our options open. We have submitted the grant application for a resilient, replacement culvert in that location. And we are due to hear back whether or not that gets funded in August, but even if we are approved or saying that we will move forward, the money would not be available until January, which then puts us into the next probably.
That's
round.
federal money.
That is state money.
Oh, okay.
And, but the council did, authorize in the the FY 27 budget for us to begin design work for Payne Road culvert and the Scarborough Hill Road culvert, so we'll be starting that. So just wanted to let you know that we don't have a solution set yet, but we still have all our options open.
I know we're running late, can I just make another comment of something I noticed in town? I'm riding out Gore Road. Going out towards Payne the other day, and I saw a mail truck up on the sidewalk. And I thought it was broken down maybe. So as I was approaching it, then I saw a hand reach out into the mailbox. And then I realized all the mailboxes are on, where they always were. And then you have the sidewalk and you have the road, so the mailman now drives along the sidewalk to deliver the mail. You didn't plan on that, Angela.
We did actually talk about that, actually, and yeah, the post office was not. Yeah, they had said they would not do that, so that's a different story.
That's the first time I saw it, but I thought that was an unintended consequence.
Really bad for the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But
And
it's,
those walking on the sidewalk.
it's also bad to have the mailboxes on the sidewalk because now you've got it,
Yeah.
you know, an obstruction for walking or biking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's no, it's
Well,
a
that's why
no-win,
it's
it's a
behind-
no-win
That was
situation.
the problem, is that you put them behind the sidewalk, so you have access up for the sidewalk, but then the post office does whatever they're gonna do to get to the mailbox.
Well, we gotta bring back the guy who walks around with the bag.
But the sidewalks are not contiguous, so there you got a problem. You have to meet him at the. Yeah.
Angela, is there an estimate for a finish date for the Eastern Trail work?
Oh, yes.
No, but they are moving very quickly. The first deadline is October of this year. They're supposed to have the first piece done, which is Pleasant Hill Road to Wainwright. Shaw Brothers will not officially tell us anything different. The second piece would be a year from October. I do not see how it is possible for them to go beyond October for the full trail in the condition that we're in now.
Yeah.
But they will not commit to a date.
Okay.
And they're being very careful about that.
Sure.
I will say we've had to put out multiple
I know, cause.
push to
it
the
looks
public.
done.
Because it is causing issues for Shaw Brothers
Yeah.
while they're trying to finish up. Having people literally picking their dog up and putting them over the barrier and then climbing over the barrier and using the trail on bridges that were just installed, like. I just gotta caution it will get done quicker if people stay off the trail. And Shaw Brothers has asked all the communities, South Portland and Scarborough, to keep pushing that out because it is becoming problematic to have people on that trail.
Yeah.
That bridge is very high,
Mhm.
and I assume it's gonna taper. Or is it gonna be, it's like this, right?
No, they're ramping.
They're doing the
down.
ramp, yeah.
But that's like part of what.
You'll get down.
It'll be the highest point.
It might be. You have a pretty view out there.
You have the back of Hannaford and the fog.
Sure, go the other way.
Okay, great. Any parting thoughts?
So we should expect a cast of thousands on the 26th of July, right?
Oh, for Metro?
Yeah.
Well, if you bake a cake, Roger, and we tell them that there's gonna be cake, you know, or donuts.
I'll have them swing by your
Oh.
place.
So the trails master plan?
My
That-
understanding, so that's
Maybe next time.
Autumn's CIP, and I don't believe she has put that out for a consultant yet.
We did give her a long range planner though, so that she can do more stuff, because that's been, I think
Yeah,
it's been
it
her
hasn't-
capacity.
yeah.
That's been
We've
the
had
challenge.
staff available to kind of work on it, but that is the next step. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Would we get done at 8:30? Just
Move to adjourn.